Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
What is happening, everybody? I'm Larry Roberts.
And I'm Sarah Lucy, and this is Branded, your comprehensive guide to creative branding.
And on this episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking about a process where we go through a journey of knowing and then getting our potential customers to like us. And then from that point, even trust us. So we're going to be talking about the know, like, trust journey that each and every one of us takes as we continue to build our personal brands.
This really is a cornerstone of personal branding, thought leadership, sales, kind of everything that involves an audience or a target consumer that you're having any type of conversation with. And how do we get them to really understand who we are, what we do, and why they should trust us and bring us in on whatever it is that they're doing?
Yeah, and I think so many times we get caught up in establishing our personal brand. We think that it's people just knowing about us. But really, that's just the foundation of it all. That's just where it starts. So, yeah, you have to get out there. You have to establish that brand. You have to make that brand known. You, if you are the personal brand, you have to get out there and people have to know you. But once they know you, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to engage with you or what most of our goals are, buy from you. So, what are some of the things, Sarah, that we need to do to even just start that process? I mean, we talk about it episode to episode, but what are some of the things we need to know to do just to get known?
Yeah, so the know piece of this, that's just our introduction. It really is just letting people into, like, this is who we are. So when we're talking from a thought leadership or content creator or podcaster, whatever it is, like that kind of perspective, it almost comes down to the type of content that we're putting out. So when you're trying to just get people to know you, you're introducing yourself. So this is when you tell those like origin stories. How did you get started? What brought you to where you're at now? What milestones have you hit? And kind of introducing some insights that you might have about whatever your topic is. So people can start to realize, like, okay, this is what she's talking about. This is what she is known for. This is what she's an expert in. So it's really just those basics, those beginning stories, just to give them just kind of like a taste of who you are. It's like when you walk into a party and you say, "Hi, this is who I am." It's the same thing, but it's just with your kind of public persona.
Yeah, and it's one of those situations where you have to really start establishing and sharing who you really are. A lot of times when we're trying to build that brand and we're trying to build that audience, we try to be everything to everyone. And when you're trying to be everything to everyone, what ends up happening?
You become nobody to anybody.
Exactly. And so if you're really wanting to get beyond just that know who you are factor, you really have to start establishing a connection with your audience based on your personal values, based on your personal experiences. And that's where, Sarah, you were talking about sharing anecdotes and stories. That's where that all comes into play. But eventually we have to step out beyond just posting every day or sharing every day and advertising essentially every day to get that awareness. But now we have to establish that real relationship. And in order to do that, that's when you have to tap into that. We use this word on almost every episode, but you have to tap into that authenticity.
Authenticity. The know is just that introduction. And one thing like I really feel like people don't realize is we're going to go over all three of the steps, but they're not linear. So if you start off creating all this content just for people to know you and then move into like and then trust, people aren't starting at the same spot. So you have to kind of disperse among them and kind of touch on all these different things as you go, which will make more sense, I guess, when we talk about the rest of them. But before I forgot it, I had to say it.
You got to throw it out there. You got to lay,
Had to
you got to
throw
lay
it
the
out there.
foundation. Yeah, no, that's fine.
ADHD is really kicking me today. But
Well, and that kind of talks about one of the things that when it comes into that liking us perspective, we have to have that consistency. And although we didn't necessarily just demonstrate consistency in our messaging here,
thanks.
it's something that we have to do. We're just on one episode, so I think we're fine there, Sarah. But that consistency in your messaging, not necessarily in a discussion that you're having about something, but you can't take one perspective for 1 week and then totally flip the script and go a different direction the next week in hopes of making a deeper connection. You have to maintain that consistency. And in order to maintain that consistency, what do we have to do? We have to establish what our messaging is. So we have to kind of step back, and it goes back to our mission statements and our vision statements, and making sure that consistency in our messaging, people aren't going to like you if you don't have that consistency because they don't know who you are. So laying that foundation is absolutely critical.
Yeah. And then once we've really started to get them to know us, that's when we want to get them to like us. If you're like me, you need everyone to like you just so much. But this phase is when we start really showing our personality. So getting to know us is really just like, this is who I am, this is what I do. But getting to like you, it's more personal, it's deeper, it's that emotional level. So you have to really put who you are just as a person, not even just like as a company.
Yeah.
But like I won't go into this phase posting about favorite daughter media. Like, this is Sarah. Like, this is who I am.
Yeah, I think that's the most critical stage to building that knowing and liking aspect of it is being you. And it's kind of interesting because we talked about this before, but who are you? And I still deal with this on a regular basis of who are you? Because depending on sometimes who I'm talking about and the topic, I speak differently. Now, since Sarah called me out on this about a year ago, I've been working on that, especially over this last year, and being more cognizant of being consistent in my messaging and consistent in my presentation, and not just presentation talking about it from a stage or a podcast perspective, but my presentation on a one-on-one personal perspective as well. So look at yourself and do a little inventory and see, how are you engaging with people? How are you sharing your you? And are you sharing your real you? Or are you sharing the you that you think your brand needs to represent? The owner of the Savannah Bananas, he does a tremendous job, Jesse Cole, of being him regardless. The Savannah Bananas, if you don't know about them, they're I think it's an A-League baseball team out of Florida. And the dude wears, is it Georgia? Is that where it is? I thought it was Florida.
Savannah's in Georgia.
That makes sense. Thank you. Wow, that's a nice one. That's gonna make a nice reel. But the Savannah Bananas, yes, out of Georgia. He wears a yellow tux everywhere he goes. You never see him without that yellow tux. But even when he's not on the field, or even when he's not in an interview, he's still the same guy, and he does a tremendous job of personal branding. And that's one of the core reasons for his entire success. The dude pulls down crazy cash, and he made the Savannah Bananas an amazing team just by maintaining that messaging and maintaining that engagement with his audience on a level that's unparalleled with anybody else, because it's so unique and it's so different and it's so Jesse Cole.
Yeah, getting people from the like to the know phase, that's like really about going beyond surface level. Like, you talk about it a lot too with like your red hat. Like, you, at the beginning of you creating your brand, people knew the red hat, but they didn't know what that meant. So they just knew you as the red hat guy, eventually the podcast guy, eventually the AI guy, but they didn't actually understand like who you are, what you did, because they knew you, but they hadn't yet moved into that. Like, I mean, they liked you, but you know what I mean? Because it was still so surface level. So as like thought in like the thought leadership content creation journey, this is when you have to start really digging deeper and getting past that surface level. This is when you talk about the struggles in your journey of getting where you are. This is when you let people in on like what your day is like the day in the life of you and your brand and your company and what you're doing. And talking about things like your why and why you're doing this, why not just what you're talking about and what you're an expert in, but why it matters to you and how it came to the point that it's so important. Because that's all the stuff that's going to get people to see who you are underneath the red hat or underneath the yellow tux and get them past just, okay, I know who he is, to
Yeah.
I like him, I understand him, I feel like I connect with him.
Well, and that's the whole point of the book, right? I wrote
Mhm.
the book, Under the Red Hat, How to Stand Out in a Crowded Marketplace. And it's
Shameless
because,
plug.
yeah, not shameless at all. I'm yeah, I'm gonna throw it out there. But it's gonna drop here in the next couple of weeks. So I'm pretty excited about that. But that's exactly right. You know, that's how they get to like you. And then from that point, when you start sharing your whys and you start sharing testimonies of the impact that you've had on others, that's when the trust factor comes in. You have those testimonials. And, you know, I think I'm one of the worst, honestly, at sharing testimonials. I have testimonials, but you very rarely, there's a few on my website, but you very rarely see them. I mean, I have some amazing testimonials, and I'm like, people don't want to read that. But really, they do. They don't just want to, they need to see that your brand and you as part of that brand extension have made impacts on people's lives. They need to understand why you do what you do. They need to understand your experiences in order for them to trust you and eventually engage with you at a customer or even just a loyal follower level. You know, if you're building a social media presence, people come and they'll friend with you on. I mean, I've got, I don't know, nearly 5,000 friends on Facebook. I probably know 200 of those people. But when you build those 200 are my loyal followers. They're going to engage with me. They're going to follow me regardless of what platform I'm on. They're going to be my friends for life. They're going to be really invested in me and my brand. And that's exactly what we have to do if we want that personal brand to make that impact and build that likability and build that trust factor that we all need so much.
Kind of going back to like the type of content that we put out at this point, when we've gotten to trust, like you said, this is going to be when you put out things like testimonials and case studies that show real life impacts that you've had. But also, surprisingly enough, you also want to talk about mistakes. Like you want to be transparent. You want to share mistakes that you've made, setbacks that you faced, and talk about what you learned from those, because sharing your mistakes and what you've learned actually can enhance your credibility. If you try to make it seem like you've done everything perfect every day of your life, you've never messed anything up, that's bullshit. And everyone will see through it.
Language.
Am I allowed to say that on this show? It's my show. I can say whatever I want. But honestly, like, would you trust someone who makes it seem like everything they've ever done has been roses? Or would you want to hear from people saying, like, when I first started, I struggled as much as you are, and here's how I got past it? That's what makes people actually see you as a real human and trust that you know what you're doing because you've been through the whole learning process. No one comes out of the gate being perfect at anything.
Yeah, and that vulnerability is absolutely essential. I used to follow a lot of the influencers out there, a lot of the big time marketers, and they just seemed like they could not make a mistake. They couldn't do anything wrong. They have all the answers. They got all the money. And then as you dig into their lives a little bit deeper and you get to know them more and more, and you're like, oh, this person does the same stuff that I do. Oh, this person's struggling just as hard as I'm struggling. Oh, this person may have this many followers, but turns out they're fake. Oh, wow. What? That's insane. So understanding that other people are going through the same thing is absolutely critical, but you also have to share that story in a way that is genuine. That it's not just you're telling it from an angle of a pity party or a fake story to try to engage with someone on a different emotional level. They have to be able to believe in that, and to believe in that, first they have to what? They have to know you. They have to like you. And then to believe that story, they have to what? They
Trust
have to
you.
trust you. So, don't come firing out the gate talking about how many mistakes you made, because at that stage of the game, they probably don't want to hear that at that stage of the game. But for them to reach that next level of engagement, you do have to share every step of the process. And as human beings, we all know that one of the biggest steps in every process is failure and then learning from that failure.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to what I said a little early in the episode. People are going to join you at different points in your journey. So as you're putting, like, you might be in that trust phase with the followers that have been with you, but there's some people who are just kind of joining. So if all you're putting out at this point are those mistakes, those transparent recounts of like mess ups and the testimonials, you still have to pepper in more of the this is who I am, this is what I do, this is why I do it. Go back to the first phases and still create content from those, because you don't know who's actually watching what you're doing. So make sure that you don't get stuck in one of the phases and have it be just something that's a continuous loop.
Yeah, I mean, as an example, I mean, I was on a podcast not too long ago, and I was talking about Jesse Cole, and I mentioned that he owns the Savannah Bananas, and I was talking about the Savannah Bananas being from Florida, and it turns out they're in Georgia. It's the weirdest thing.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
It's crazy, but mistakes happen, and people need to understand that those mistakes make us human, and that's what makes us vulnerable. That's what makes us likable, and eventually that's what leads to that trust. So hopefully people can learn from that example right there.
Yeah, you and I have always been very intentional about not being perfect. I mean, from the beginning, we've put out bloopers in our episodes. We put out just bloopers by themselves, and we'll be the first ones to admit when we make a mistake or when we don't know something, because why wouldn't we? I guess. I think I get asked a lot about how do you, like, isn't it scary to be so public about anything or be on a podcast and be in the public eye? Aren't you afraid people are going to judge you or people are going to like bully you? And kind of, but also if you're so honest and upfront about the mistakes that you've made, it takes away that ammunition. Like, what are you going to say about me that I haven't already said about myself?
Right.
Like, oh, you're going to point out that I messed up about that? Go back to the reel before it. It's me saying how much I messed up about that. It's so important to be honest about it.
Yeah.
Because it just proves that you know you're not perfect. And if people know that you don't think you're perfect, they're not going to point out when you're not.
It's like Eminem on 8 Mile. You know, he won the whole rap battle because he insulted himself through his entire rap, and he left the other rap guy with no ammunition to fire back. So he won by default. So anyways, that might have dated myself a little bit. But,
oh, no, I know every word to that battle. All 3 battles, actually.
Oh, nice. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So I thought there was a generation gap there, but apparently not. No.
No.
All right, cool.
That's one of my favorite movies.
I
know every Eminem song ever. Come on now.
Anyways, hopefully you guys are listening right now. If you didn't know us, hopefully now you know us a little bit. Eventually you'll grow to like us. That's the idea. And then even beyond that, hopefully you'll be able to trust us. So if you got some value out of this episode, do us a favor, show us that you like us, and hit that subscribe button so we can continue to bring you these amazing insights each and every week. And with that, I am Larry Roberts.
I'm Sarah Losi, and I'll talk to you next week.
Okay, round 2. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.